Hello. Hey.
Hi.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I'm Adani Abiodun. I'm co-founder and chief product officer of Mr. Labs. We're the original contributor to SWI, previously working at Facebook, launching Project Libra, but built the SWI protocol. Today, I'm joined by none other than Ray, aka Grayscale, who's managing director and head of product and research at Grayscale Investments. Hi, Ray.
Hi, it's
Um,
great to be on. I've been looking forward to this.
Well, Grayscale recently launched GSUI, the Grayscale SWI trading exchange product listed on NYSE Arca. This is a fourth SWI focused product, but this is actually it's actually more to this today. So we want to get into the details, what's behind and driving the conviction that Grayscale has behind SWI, why now, and what ultimately comes next. So Ray, Grayscale has now launched four SWI focused products, not just SWI, but Walrus, Deep for Deep Book, which are core primitives of the SWI ecosystem. So could you walk us through that journey? What keeps bringing Grayscale back to the SWI ecosystem?
Absolutely. So at Grayscale, we're focused on giving investors access to the ecosystems that are shaping the future of blockchain and digital assets. We were relatively early on SWI. We launched our first product, the private placement, in 2024, and then Deep and Wall followed in 2025. Our conviction in SWI has deepened as the network has matured. What began as interest in a next generation layer one has evolved into recognition of a broader ecosystem taking shape around it. We like that SWI was built with performance and scale in mind from day one, and the Miston team has taken really meaningful strides in abstracting away the frictions associated with using blockchains. And that becomes very important when you're evaluating whether infrastructure can support actual financial and commercial activity. And so what's particularly compelling in the stack forming around the protocol is how the pieces have come together. So for example, Deep Book strengthens on-chain liquidity infrastructure. Walrus addresses decentralized data management, And these are foundational layers. So for us, expanding our SWI-focused product lineup reflects conviction in an ecosystem that's increasingly built for real-world use, regardless of market cycles.
Yeah, that really helps. And if I want to go to a bit more detail, right? When a firm like Grayscale expands its SWI product offerings, what does that mean for the broader market in general?
It means when we expand within a single ecosystem, it reflects our deep research and our long-term conviction. It means that this is exposure that we think belongs in investor portfolios, and we think meaningful innovation is happening at multiple layers in the ecosystem. Again, we were fortunate enough to be relatively early on SWI. I personally have owned it for years now. And as it's grown, it's become a top project by market cap. When we think about the other ecosystem projects, we want to give investors opportunities to get that lower market cap, higher beta exposure to earlier stage projects that stand to benefit from the proliferation of the SWI ecosystem. And we think that SWI differentiates itself from other layer ones in terms of three things. One, its technical architecture and performance. Two, user experience. And three, the developers behind SWI's ecosystem. Miston Labs plays a huge role as a team of A players. And they have award-winning technical expertise across cryptography, computer science, and product. And that's one of the reasons that we are excited about the broader SWI ecosystem. More broadly, as the asset class matures, we want to create opportunities for investors to gain exposure to the technology shaping Web3. And the adoption that you're seeing with Grayscale also reflects our belief that digital assets are evolving beyond single token narratives and towards more complete digital economies.
Yeah, certainly the meta now is everybody is talking more about finance, and we can see a world where stablecoins have really seen product market fit, and we've seen a massive amount of growth. And hopefully with market structure and all the new laws around stablecoins will make it easier for more companies to get involved and actually simplify how they use new financial rails in crypto. I want to jump more into finance itself, right? Like, in your view, as you know, like, we were working on Libra for quite a while at Facebook, and we knew the massive opportunity there was to really unlock a lot of financial potential by having a layer one for the world. In your view, what is it about SUI's technology that makes it the right foundation for real world financial applications?
For us, it's an architecture that enables high throughput applications and a user experience that can rival today's leading web platforms. Because for financial institutions, you need the speed, efficiency, and reliability. And SUI's programming model was built to preserve security while scaling and maintaining performance. And when I think about blockchain adoption, especially for the financial use cases, I think of like scalability and better user interface as a huge part and a huge stepping stone to mass adoption. And so out of all the major blockchains, SUI is the fastest, the most performant, and the cheapest. And as activity continues to grow across DeFi and across tokenized assets, this is going to become increasingly important. When you see more value moving on chain, scale and performance are going to be paramount. And they're positioned well as we see mainstream finance continue to move more on chain. And so I think that SUI, in our view, SUI's design positions it to actually be able to support the next generation of financial applications.
Yeah, let's talk more about the product, GSUI. GSUI, it's a staking exchange traded product on NYSE Arca, right? So it's accessible through traditional brokerages, as we all know. For someone who's never staked crypto before, what does that actually mean? And why does the structure matter? And who can now participate that purely just couldn't before?
So a lot of people own tokens outright. People even know how to stake outright, but it's not for everybody. It's fairly operationally complex. The ETF structure gives SUI exposure in a form of a traditional security. And that means that you have creations and redemptions that help the price of the ETF track the underlying price of the SUI token. When you have that, you open up the door to a much broader array of investor segments. That means more institutions, and specifically it means the advised channels. When we talk about the advised channels, we're talking about tens and trillions of dollars, so it's very meaningful. When we think about staking as people that are building financial products, for me, it's important that we live in a world now where digital assets like SUI are income producing. Crypto is an income producing asset. So as we create products, it's important for us to create products that allow investors to get access to that revenue stream in a way that's easy, where they don't actually have to do anything. And that's what investors can get through GSUI. So if you have a brokerage account or a retirement account, now you can get staked SUI exposure next to your Apple stock or your Amazon stock. And ultimately, it brings digital asset exposure, including that participation in staking, including the opportunity to capture that additional revenue stream into a format that aligns with existing portfolio construction, reporting, and compliance frameworks. And so ultimately, it opens doors. And for investors who require regulated exchange-traded vehicles, this structure expands that access in a very meaningful way. And it also reflects the continued integration of digital assets into the traditional financial infrastructure.
It's important to note that GSUI is the only staking ETF for SUI at this moment in time. Groundbreaking work that your team has done in getting it out to market. Let's assume you have a crystal ball next, right? Like, we're seeing institutions move from observing crypto to now actually building on-chain, whether it be stablecoins, whether it's tokenized assets, enterprise DeFi, it's becoming a thing. Like, where does this go next? What are your broader predictions for the industry?
So when I started, I joined the space in 2018. And at that time, we were talking to institutions and allocators, and we were explaining what Bitcoin was. We were doing Bitcoin 101, and people were literally still on about tulips and tulip bubbles. And now it's just amazing where we live in a world where institutions are not just investing or building financial products, but they're actually building on the blockchain. So we're seeing some of the biggest institutions across financial services building or integrating with on-chain solutions like JP Morgan, Goldman, the New York
Yeah.
Stock Exchange, Visa, MasterCard are all using blockchain infrastructure. And that's a key signal and an endorsement of smart contract platforms like SUI as the infrastructure for the future of capital markets. And so bringing capital markets on chain is an opportunity that is worth hundreds of trillions of dollars. And when you look at the numbers, we're really in the first inning with only 0.01% of these assets on chain today. So while we're early, this is a massive investable opportunity for the underlying infrastructure that's going to support these assets in smart contracts like SUI. There's a long way to go, but it's, I think you're positioned for blockchains like SUI that are built for performance and global scale today are positioned for success. You have a really positive backdrop where you have leaders of traditional industries increasingly building on chain. And we have a good regulatory backdrop with potential regulatory clarity on the horizon. So I think bigger picture over time, 5 to 10 years from now, we, in my view, are going to see value concentrate amongst a smaller number of chains like SUI that have the speed and throughput and scale to actually support the proliferation of the on-chain economy.
Totally agree. I mean, that takes me to my next question. So, we're still early, right? For anyone who is still on the sidelines today, what's the one thing or more that you think they should take away from this conversation you and I are having right now?
So, one, it's not too late to get involved from an investment perspective. While we've seen so much adoption and institutional involvement, we still think it's the beginning. Digital assets are continuing to evolve from experimental technology to foundational infrastructure. And when you see regulated investment products, expanding ecosystem development, and institutional adoption converging, that really reflects growing maturity. I think for a lot of you out there, we're always thinking about how to give investors access to an asset class that's really nascent and transformative and evolving. And maybe you're out there and maybe you've just kind of started wrapping your head around Bitcoin, or you figured out what smart contracts are like Ethereum and SUI. And you're looking at all the tokens out there, and the bad news is that every month there's another 5 million tokens or so. We're here to help. We are doing content like this. We are creating reports. We want to educate investors and help them on their journey and help them separate the signal from the noise. I think we're at a unique juncture right now with institutional adoption cycles and regulatory clarity. And I would tell investors to not be discouraged by the current price environment, and that rather, in our view, this creates a very compelling entry point for opportunities that we think we have long-term conviction around, like SUI.
Yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. And I really, again, thanks to you and your team for all the hard work you do for educating the market on what's available. We always follow the work that you do and the content that you publish for all various chains, SUI and other chains as well. I think it's a very high quality and standard. Ray, anything you want to leave the audience with?
So at Grayscale, again, we're focused on identifying where real value is being created in the crypto ecosystem and translating that into thoughtful institutional grade access for investors. What we have seen with SUI is high performance network built for real world use, where infrastructure, liquidity, and ecosystem development are advancing together. We think that's important. And we are very excited about SUI because it reflects where the industry is going towards next generation blockchains, expanding real world applications, and increasing integration with traditional financial infrastructure. And, from my seat, our role is to continue to build the bridges that allow investors to participate in that upside.
Great. And for, as mentioned, Grayscale has the only revenue generating ETF for SUI that's live in the market today. Where can people buy GSUI? Where can people read more in GSUI? Any potential places you can direct them to?
All your brokerage accounts.
That's exactly what we want to hear.
Type GSUI into your brokerage accounts. It's meant to be simple, and it's meant to flow through all the pipes that people are used to using to buy stocks and ETFs. That's the beauty of it.
Awesome. Thanks for making life a lot easier for those who want to get involved in crypto. Thank you, folks. And
thank you, and thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. For everyone who listened in, really appreciate your time. And go check out GSUI. Follow Grayscale on their X account, and look out for all the remainder of the content that they keep pumping out. Great work. Thanks, everyone. And